A message says, "We are nearby," and your calm apartment instantly feels exposed. You notice the dishes, the silence you were enjoying, and the version of yourself you would have to switch on if the doorbell rang. If you are among people whose homes feel like protected recovery space, ask what this experience is responding to and what would make it more useful. That question opens a better conversation than another quick judgment about your personality. People sometimes reduce not wanting guests at home to being inhospitable, controlling, antisocial, or incapable of closeness. That conclusion is too small to explain the experience. Home can function as the one environment where social performance, sensory input, and unpredictability are under your control. An unplanned visit changes more than the room. It changes the conditions under which you recover. The behavior can make sense without being ideal, and understanding its purpose does not excuse every consequence. There is no single personality type behind not wanting guests at home. Temperament, learning, stress relationships, culture, and practical circumstances can combine in different proportions. Treat this explanation as a framework, not a diagnosis, and keep only what matches the evidence of your life. Start with one possible mechanism. Hosting adds invisible tasks such as cleaning, planning, monitoring comfort, and deciding when the visit ends. Hold this first explanation lightly and compare it with what your body choices and energy actually do. Compare this first clue across several situations before deciding what it means. Watch how that looks in a workday. You enjoy the same friend at a cafe but feel tense when they settle onto your couch without an end time. In the first scene, the need beneath the behavior matters more than how the behavior looks from outside. Read the first scene through need, timing, and aftermath rather than appearance. A second layer is easy to miss. An unexpected arrival removes preparation time, which can matter more than the number of people involved. The second explanation becomes useful only when the same conditions repeatedly produce a similar response. Use the second clue only if it predicts more than one response. The experience becomes clearer in private. A planned 2-hour dinner feels manageable because the beginning and ending are visible. The private scene reveals whether the response brings genuine recovery or merely delays discomfort. Use the private example to compare real recovery with delayed discomfort. The third piece concerns attention. Personal objects and unfinished routines may make the home feel emotionally revealing. For the third explanation, distinguish what you observed from the meaning you assigned afterward. Keep observation and interpretation separate while testing the third clue. Social situations add another clue. You clean areas nobody will inspect because hosting activates an internal standard guests never requested. The social scene shows what happens when belonging, visibility, or another person's expectations enter the equation. Let the social example reveal the extra weight of belonging and visibility. Another part appears under pressure. Noise, movement, and conversation can interrupt the environment your body associates with decompression. This fourth possibility matters most when pressure changes the intensity, timing, or cost of the response. Pressure is the comparison point for the fourth clue. Now place the same response inside a stressful week. After everyone leaves, you need another hour to restore the room and your attention. The stressful week example separates a stable preference from a temporary response to depleted capacity. Use the stressful example to check whether depleted capacity changes the response. A final mechanism helps explain repetition. Past experiences with ignored boundaries can make vague invitations feel riskier than clear plans. The fifth explanation should increase choice. Discard it if it only supplies a more sophisticated insult. A useful fifth clue creates options instead of another fixed identity. One final scene separates a trait from a trap. A close friend accepts meeting elsewhere, and the relationship survives the boundary you feared would offend them. The final scene asks whether the behavior remains flexible when circumstances, energy, or relationships change. Let the final example test whether choice remains available as circumstances change. To make the home privacy pattern more precise, compare 3 conditions: a rested day, a depleted day, and a day spent with people who feel safe. Notice whether the response changes in speed, intensity, or cost. If it shifts with context, the context belongs in the explanation. That comparison prevents one difficult moment from becoming a permanent identity. Look for a counterexample to home privacy as carefully as you look for confirmation. Remember a time when the usual response did not happen, happened less strongly, or ended sooner. Ask what was different about preparation, energy, environment, expectations, and support. A counterexample reveals the conditions that make greater choice possible. The hidden cost of home privacy deserves equal honesty. Privacy is legitimate, but rigid protection can shrink relationships if no alternative spaces or forms of connection are allowed to exist. Preserve whatever the response protects, connects, restores, or clarifies. Change the portion, reducing freedom, straining trust, or moving you farther from what you value. Start by observing the pattern. State clearly that you need advance notice rather than hoping people infer it from delayed replies. A second step is practical. Offer an alternative location when you want connection, but not access to your home. Third, make the change specific. Set a start and end time so hosting has edges instead of becoming an open-ended demand. Fourth, make the new response repeatable. Simplify what counts as acceptable preparation, and stop treating an ordinary home like a public performance. Fifth, use support carefully. Create one guest-ready area if that reduces stress without turning the entire space into a showroom. Sixth, review what actually happened. When declining, be warm and direct appreciation for the person does not require agreement to the visit. Finally, know when more support is needed. Notice whether the boundary protects recovery, or whether fear is eliminating relationships you genuinely want. You are allowed to control access to your home. At the same time, closeness needs somewhere to happen, so build forms of contact that respect both privacy and connection. Flexibility means choosing among several responses instead of being pushed into one move. An understandable response does not have to become the only move available. Try one 7-day experiment designed for home privacy, but do not repeat a generic ritual every day. Choose one relevant action, use it in a real situation, and record the outcome. Keep, revise, or discard the experiment according to evidence rather than guilt. The door does not have to remain open to prove your heart is open. A clear invitation, a neutral meeting place, or a planned visit can hold real affection. Hospitality is more honest when it includes consent. The goal is not a new label. It is enough understanding and flexibility to make a more deliberate next choice.